are here. This is going to be a good class. This is very interesting, these 50 demonic states, because it's been a while since I've taught from here, and it's been a while since I've read it. And I recognized how much my practice has matured since the first time I read it. I think that the first time I read it, I was kind of in a crawling, toddler stage, just barely trying to stand up. And this time I feel like maybe I'm a teenager. I don't think I'm that far yet with it, but it's very, very an important aspect of the practice. And it's one that, in terms of the Shurangama Sutra, it uses what has been taught in the Shurangama Sutra and says, if you practice in this way, you may experience some of the things that we're talking about here. Now, doesn't mean that it's a stage that you're going from one to another. Actually, I really don't even like to talk about stages that much. I know that Master Sheng had categorized certain stages, but he said that, that it's not really a fixed type of a thing. And because I've seen that people can go from a very early stage and then jump quite quickly to a more profound stage, just simply by using right view and practicing with sincerity. And in this way, I mean, I've seen many of you who have done that were beginners. We can take our moderator today, Michael, who essentially started with me. I don't know how many years now. How many years have you been with me? 5? Okay. 4, somewhere in there. And his level is much deeper. I mean, he's got to put Michael over to the side a little bit more, but he's not doing too bad. And what happened with him was that he did not attend my Chicago retreat, but he heard it, I guess online or recorded. And then when he did that, something hit him. It was like very profound. And so he went back and I think, how many times did you read it? Or did you listen to the lecture?
I think it must have been by now 40 to 50 times. It's a 8 hours lectures. So on all my commutes, it's like obsessive.
You see, this is a sincere practice, but for him, something there hit him, even though some of the people that were there, they got some benefit. He really went to what we call the marrow, to inside the bone. And what it did was that kind of a sincerity of practice accelerated his level. And it's very funny because if you'd see him on the road, he would be like a little 2-year-old driving the car. But you're going, well, how can he do that? Or you see all these child geniuses and say, how can they play the violin so well? They're so young. Esther from Singapore, she's another one like this that just literally just jumped. And I see that, and to me, I'm so happy when I see it. Patricia was one as well, that she was a Tai Chi master, an instructor for the Tai Chi. And when she listened to my lecture, something clicked. And because I was talking about right view, and then she understood this. And so this is really important, when you see people. I've got some fledgling ones that are still coming up as well. And for most of you, you have done that. Ian is another one. I mean, I can't call Bill a rookie because he's one of my senior students. I mean, he got it and got it and got it. And his progress was this steady progression. This is what the 50 demonic states, it's written for you. It's written for you so that you do not become allured by the sensations or mental states that you can arrive at. And it's very, very important because these are still mental states. It's not mind, but it is the mental states that have been highly refined. And it's devoid of most of the obstructions that are there. Self is still there, but on a much different way than what we call gross self, which is, you know, if you think about yourself, you go, wow, I'm really gross, you know. But if you look at it where the self is beginning to fall off, then all of a sudden you see, okay, there's something more to this. And you begin to have these little mini realizations along the way. I don't want to get people too excited about getting realizations, because you'll mess the whole thing up by looking for realizations. But they come. Sometimes they're very, very short. Other times they can stay for a long time. But the 50 demonic states are showing you that there are certain states that can come up in your practice. If you have a well-known advisor, they will tell you what Master Boshan said. His master told him, not yet, just keep going. Don't get off the ride, stay on it, you know, and just keep moving along. And so as you're doing this, the more that you begin to listen to this refrain in the 50 demonic states, and it literally is a refrain in two ways. One of them is just constantly repeated in all of the points of these, what we could say, super mundane abilities. But it's also a caution to refrain from hanging on to this. I see Yawen came in, so she's our you know, resident music person. And so I'm talking about refrain. And so this refrain comes in all of it, and I'll spot it and show it to you, and you'll see it. And essentially it's like, if you get to this point, this is good. It's a mark of somebody that's progressing, but just leave it alone. Don't bother with it. Don't examine it. Just keep going. It's like somebody who is on a vacation, and you get so excited about what's there, and you want to stop at every point in your driving. Let's say I had that experience many years ago in Canada, where the mountains were seemed like 10 times bigger, and there was rainbows and clouds and lakes, and I wanted to stop all the time to take a picture. But you know, how many times can you do that? Instead, they're saying just keep going. Don't stop to view the scenery. You see the scenery, you experience the scenery, but let it go. And so that is the other aspect of the refrain. One of them is a repeating in there, and then the other part is this refrain saying, don't do this. And so irregardless of where you're at in terms of your level of practice, this is very solid advice, that when you practice and you're meditating, you just simply meditate. And you're sitting there. But you don't try to dissect or digest what the mind is experiencing, because at this point, they're just all mental states. They're great mental states. I mean, it's much better than thinking about, you know, how you're going to pay the bill at the end of the month, or whether so-and-so, you know, is doing this to you or whatever. You're sitting there very comfortably, and these things come because your practice is right on in that moment, and you think that this is the reward. You're not through with the meal yet, but you want to go right to the dessert. And so you get a slop of dessert. You think it's great because you've never tasted it before, but it's still slop. It's still a mental state versus mind itself. Mind itself is not a mental state. Try to remember that when you're sitting there and the Buddha appears in front of you, you would say, you're a mental state. You're phenomena. And the Buddha says, are you sure about that? Now you're off your method. You're talking to yourself. You don't know that because you don't have that kind of experience. But this is what gets you to the major leagues of the practice, is that most people, they get up to a certain level and then they will plateau out. Maybe it's unified mind. And it feels good. And every time they sit, they can sit like a sitting fool, you know, and they just sit there, kind of like Forrest Gump was a running fool. You know, you become the Forrest Gump of meditation, just sitting there. You're just so comfortable. It's like you go there and then you switch it off. And then when the time bell rings, you're back again. But you're not really making any progress. You plateaued out. This is the danger of people who are senior practitioners. And I've mentioned to you many times, this is old dog John, just somebody that goes to sit on their cushion and lays out like a dog in the sun. Feels so good, so comfortable. And they've lost that that ability to practice. Is very interesting in the book by Ernest Hemingway, The Old Man and the Sea. They talk about the protagonist there, I think his name was Santiago, an old man that was there. And he was already past this point in his life. He said he didn't think anymore about being valiant in his dreams. And he never thought like, oh, I could be a victor anymore in his dreams, imagining that. His dreams were just of visualizing a lazy lion lying in the sun, just content. And in some ways that's not bad, but that was a plateau. In the book, Ernest Hemingway reminds him that there's still a little bit of life left in that body, still a little bit more that can be challenged. So with those senior students, I try to awaken them from their self-imposed slumber and get them out of their coma. They just went into this plateau coma. Still something there. Push harder, study harder. This is the time. Give it some effort. You have a breath. Make it worth it. When you take that breath and say, that breath was worth it. And this one is worth it. But if you're sitting there just commiserating with yourself about your life or whatever, you're not really doing any good work there. So you have to apply yourself. Does that mean that you can't enjoy life? No. No, you can be in this way. You can, right before I came on, I have to confess, I had a piece of apple pie, but there wasn't one bite of that apple pie that I didn't enjoy and taste it, and the tardiness and the sweetness and the cinnamon and all of that. I tasted it to the very end. But when I finished with it, I just went on, cleaned the plate and moved on. And I bring it up now just simply to show you, you still enjoy life. It's not like you're resigning from the human race. Quite to the contrary, you're looking at it and seeing, maybe there's something more noble I can do with my life. Something that I was meant to do here. What is that? And for many of you, Chan gives you that purpose. And it's no longer about watching the sleepy lions. You become a lion. And your roar awakens others. This is important work. We want to set that all into motion before you pass away. Like Master Ling Chi says, if you don't know this, when King Yama from the underworld comes to collect his due, collect his bill, you have no idea where you're going. So if you're just swirling around in samsara, in the bardo, and who knows where you end up at. You might as well have one of those rotating wheels where you go, and oh, you're a pig this time. Being a pig is not as bad as being a ghost or a hell dweller. And what are you going to say? Like, oink? It's going to take you a while to get back up again. So it's better if you do not know where you're going to go, what Master Ling Chi said, then it's better for you to practice wholeheartedly so that you can have a chance to say, I want to go here. Some of you want to go to the Pure Land. People ask me, are you going to go to the Pure Land? And I go, where's that? I thought it was here, but maybe I'm wrong. But it's a little different outlook as to what the Pure Land is. So all of this is kind of a preface of what we're doing with these 50 demonic states, because it's really important. And coming back to this 7th volume of the Shurangama Sutra, I was so humble. Last week when I was reading it, I was sitting alongside you, learning. I was amazed at it. And I had never seen it in that way. Even before, when I read it, it was as if the words had gauze on top of them, and I could only make out something very sketchy. Still sounded good, but way too much ego I had into it, way too much. And so I'd go, yeah, I identify with this one, or I identify with that one, or whatever. And even though it keeps having this refrain of saying, don't do that, there was still part of me that was looking at that in the wrong way. Now, whether or not you or I have these experiences, it's not as important as understanding that there is a progression in the practice. And these things come because they're part of mind, but they're still on the phenomenal side. And that's what's really, really important about this, is they're still phenomena, good phenomena, better than an apple pie, better than a jelly donut, well, that's right neck and neck with a jelly donut. But it's really good in terms of that, as long as you don't hold on to it or go, where's the second donut? Or I want a bigger donut. And then you mess it all up. And that's what it's saying. Hold on. All right. You've read the Shurangama Sutra, you penetrated the sutra, and now it's beginning to work. But you have to rein in the self. Don't let the self get ahead of you to try to adhere to these experiences. Maintain, stay in the present moment. Keep your method. And you'll be hearing the words, contemplate, awareness here. And I'll point it out to you. And you'll say, well, that's what Gilbert's always telling us about how to meditate. Quite so. I didn't make it up. It was there. Now, what's funny is that when I was developing my elements for meditation, I didn't use references to that. It was my own experience. Afterwards, I began to read and then say, oh, there's the word contemplate. There's the word awareness. There's the word present moment. And so there is this universal truth there. And that's why putting those elements into meditation works. And if you do that, you're going to get these kinds of experiences. So let's move on. And by the way, I don't have my my watch with me. I took it off. So if people can let me know halfway point and 3/4 way point, I'd appreciate it. Okay. Let me see where we're at. Yeah. Last time we didn't talk about intestinal worms, right? I think last time we were talking about the kings and the demons, and how if you're practicing, they recognize that they're going to be dying. And so, and the same thing is that us as human beings, we're totally unaware that these gods are dying. We don't know that because we're just stuck in this human samsara, and it's very narrow range for us. Some people, they're able to communicate with animals, animal whisperer, dog whisperer, horse whisperer. Some can communicate with ghosts, mediums, or somebody who's passed on. Some can, unfortunately, communicate with the hell realm and enter into different demonic states than what we're talking about here. But it's a very narrow range where we can communicate and we don't see. But as you begin to practice more, the mental states that we get into are a bit different, and they increase our wave band ability to obtain information, and we can see things clearer than before. And all of a sudden we're aware of these kinds of situations and things, or realms, and it's because via our wisdom we're able to see this. Okay, so this was an interesting part, and Master Shenhua is kind of an interesting, because he's not afraid to talk about spiritual powers and things like that, where some people, many monastics will go, oh no, the Buddha said don't do that, don't talk about these things. And there could be two reasons for that. One of them is that they have not been able to penetrate to tap into these, and they're afraid of it, but you shouldn't be. It's not something that we say, oh, Master Shenhua, he was a ghost whisperer, or he was a demon whisperer, or whatever. He's not saying it for that reason. His descriptions and everything are very precise to tell you what's going on in the mental states. It's very amazing in this way, at rereading his commentary and seeing in some ways where he's going with this. And so I have to kind of present that to you. I know we want to get into it, but I have to let you know where he's going and the reason he's talking about this. Because you say, oh, this sounds too, make believe or hokey pokey. No, we're make believe. But let's see what he says. He says that I'll start here. It says, all kings of demons, ghosts, spirits, ordinary gods see their palaces collapse for no apparent reason. The earthquakes and all creatures in the water, on the land, and the air, without exception, are frightened. Yet ordinary sentient beings are sunk in a deep confusion, remain unaware of these changes. We don't know that. But when we give and we transfer merit, when you use your heart to bless somebody or give them best wishes, it extends out infinitely in terms of this, but we're not aware of that. We don't have to say, oh, it went all the way to seat to heaven this time. There's no reason to say anything like that. It's just the expansion of the mind, but it's not really the expansion. It's just that we're allowed a little bit bigger pasture to roam in terms of our perception, because we're using the mind's perception, even though it's a little bit muted because our practice is not that high. We're using the mind's perception and we can become aware. But if we're using the human perception through the 5 skandha, which is, by the way, what the book is, the 50 skandha demons, we cannot see that. So it's the practice of using the mind's own perception. Ergo, what I present mind work, right? That's what we're practicing is mind work, not human samsara, let's polish ourselves up work. So in this, and I think we had talked about that where one of his disciples got trapped in there, and he comes back to that later on. But we'll go to the next part of the sutra. It says, all beings have 5 kinds of spiritual powers. They lack only the freedom of outflows, and be outflows and inflows, because they are still attached to worldly passions. So they say all beings, we have these spiritual powers or the ability for them, except for this liberation. We cannot know that one. And because we don't have this spiritual power of liberation, the other 5 spiritual powers are very muted or inaccessible to us because we cannot see them. We cannot access them because we're not moving towards this liberation. When I was practicing Qigong, there was so many different people that had incredible skills. Some people had the skills to heal people very, very quickly, very effectively. Other people had the ability to see the future. Others could heat things up. Other things, people could move people without touching them, or see something from a distance somewhere else. If you're not aware of these things, or you think that these things are very great powers, and so you would give a lot of wisdom or a lot of respect to the person to think that they have wisdom, but they don't. They just learned how to crack these codes. They're not necessarily important. The reason I'm not doing Qigong now is because when I heard Shifu speak, I realized what I was missing. And up until that point, my search was trying to find what I was missing in all of this in terms of Qigong, developing powers and stuff. So what was it of use for? When I heard Shifu speak for the first time, I realized what was lacking. And that was this incredible, incredible wisdom. This wisdom that leads to the liberation, that makes it all make sense. And that's what this sutra is saying here, is that don't worry about all of these skills or whether you have them or you don't have them. Move towards the wisdom. This is where you'll be protected. In the wisdom, you'll have no fear. In the wisdom, you will not be turned by demons or spirits or confused or fearful of them. Just like Disan Pusa, Earth Store Bodhisattva, you could go to heaven and not be affected by being there. The only way you would be affected by being there is understanding the suffering of the sentient beings that are there and renewing your vow to liberate them. This is wisdom. So this is what he's talking about, but it's very important that we see that this last one of the liberation makes everything else make sense. And so then it continues. How could they allow you to destroy their palaces? That is why the ghost, spirits, celestial demons, sprites, and goblins come to disturb you when you're in samadhi. It's very interesting. I don't know if any of you ever had any experiences with something disturbing you while you were meditating. I'm not going to ask you to describe it, but I'm just kind of curious. Could we have a show of hands? Put your yellow hand up if that ever happened to you. I'm not seeing any hands. Okay, I see one. Okay. Anybody else? Nobody's ever been vexed by anything or confused? And I see one here. All right. Okay. it's an interesting thing, because as we do that, we can run into some experiences. Sometimes they're good experiences. They will trick you in a different way. They will get into your head and tell you, you know what, you have this kind of power, or you have that power, or whatever. I remember once when I was practicing, and I could hear my heartbeat, and then a voice, kind of this disembodied voice, said, if you can hear your heartbeat, you can hear everybody's in the room's heartbeat. And in that moment, I could hear everybody's heartbeat. It was like an echo chamber, a boom, 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 boom. And it was very incredible, but I had listened to Shifu, and I realized that this was not a healthy state, and I was off my method. And so I used my method to bring me out of that state and not indulge in that kind of an extrasensory perception. If I indulged in that, then I could become somebody who could hear sounds from far away. But so what? It didn't help me to become liberated. It would just be some kind of a parlor trick I could do, that I could hear this. It doesn't matter. I'm not important. It's not important whether it was or not. All I know was it was a mental state. There was a clarity there because the samadhi was deep, but nevertheless, it was still superimposed on the Dharmakaya. And in that way, it was not the true Dharmakaya. So we have to put those things aside and then continue to practice. If we do that, we can make great progress, because at that moment, that means your samadhi is getting better. So don't waste it. Just keep going. And so you could have things that could disturb you, because when they're looking at you, because they have the ability to look at you, maybe you don't have the ability to look at them, but they become aware of the samadhi that's there, or that you're a very good practitioner. And in that time, they're a bit jealous, and they're a bit frightful, because their station is predicated upon the understanding that you are below them. But if all of a sudden they see this incredible light of somebody in a deep samadhi, that disturbs them, because it undermines their pecking order in terms of what's there. They want whatever you have, or they don't want you to have that, because that will begin to shake their world. Now you look at this and you go, well, that sounds really good, Gilbert, but that sounds a little bit kind of far-fetched. It's okay. Don't worry about that. If you don't understand it, it's okay. One day you will see that. And that's why I think that Master Shen Hua, in terms of how he's doing that, he understands that. But likewise, we have Dharma protectors. And we can use the Dharma protectors. Now we're getting to the esoteric, but we can use the Dharma protectors to protect us. The type of Qigong I practiced was very interesting, because it was called Wei To Qigong. I didn't know who Wei To was when I first started. Thought it was a pretty cool name until I understood he was a Dharma protector like Guanggong. And then there's the 4 heavenly kings. And you can utilize them to protect you. Protect the mind from mind. And when you sit, they will protect you. Sometimes people, they have protection already. A lot of people have protection from family members that have gone on. Others have protectors, or they have an affinity because of their practice from a previous lifetime, or in this lifetime, for instance, with Kuan Yin Bodhisattva. And they will feel that, and they have this protection that helps them. They may be completely ignorant about it, or they'll just go, well, that's why, and they understand that. And a lot of times when I tell people that, they'll say, I'm very devoted to Kuan Yin. And I said, well, that's why you're getting this protection. But you can feel that. You know, I'm not going to tell you how you feel it or anything. You're all going to be looking at it saying, do you have this? It's not important. What's more important is that you understand that you can draw on that protection if ever you feel fearful. It's mind protecting mind from mind. Not bad. So if we look at it this way, then we begin to understand how mind works. It's what I teach, right? Mind work. Okay. So his commentary to this was, now do you understand why do demons come? It is because all these celestial beings, ghost spirits, and have 5 kinds of spiritual powers, which are the celestial eye, celestial ear, knowledge of others' thoughts, knowledge of previous lives, and complete spirit. But they don't have the power of freedom from outflows. If they obtain that power, they wouldn't trouble you anymore. But since they haven't obtained it, they want to be evil, and they come to destroy you. They lack only freedom from outflows. It's not easy to attain the power of freedom from outflows. What does this mean? I will be frank about it. What we call outflows are daily random thoughts that men and women have about one another. Now, this is a very interesting part about Shen Master's talk, because he equated all obstructions to sexual interest and procreation, or the act of procreation, more importantly. And I remember reading something about him where he was telling the people, I can tell you how to become liberated. How many of you want to become liberated? So the audience was all raising their hands going, I want to become liberated. He goes, it's very easy. I'm going to tell you how to do it, but you're not going to do it. And they go, tell us, we'll do it. And he said, okay, give up sex. And then there was a complete silence. And he said, see, I told you, but how many of you are going to do it? And so to him, because this was, I would say, one of the root ignorances of the samsara. And I understand why he said it, but he put all of this in there in terms of these vexing passions. There's more passions than that. But that's where he was going to here, saying this interest in this, in man and women, it vexes the mind, it colors the mind. It's not a very good one. And I remember a long time ago, someone telling me a story that just shocked me. And it was an old story about this one monk, and he had become infatuated with a nun, and he was so infatuated with her, and he says, but you're so beautiful, and your eyes, they're incredible color. I can't stop thinking about your eyes. They're very, very incredible. And so obviously he was in a very confused state, especially for a monk, for this to happen. And it happens, you know. It's difficult to be a left homer because they still have this, whether it's innate or in this lifetime, or they came late to the practice, or they just haven't experienced it and somebody touches them in the wrong way or says something. And then there's this confusion and interest there. So this monk, he had this feeling about this nun, and he wouldn't leave her alone. And so she was concerned about her own practice. Maybe he'd wear her down. Not for this nun, I don't think. So one day she came to him, and she had a handkerchief, and she had her veil down very low on her head. And she says, I'm giving this to you. And he opened it up, and he was shocked. Does anybody know what she gave him? See, if you could do this. She gave him one of her eyes. She had pulled her eye out and said, "You love the eye so much, here it is." Yeah, Jenny caught on to it. And so and he was shocked. He was going, how can this be? But it was her compassion for him that enabled her to do this. Now you tell me, are you ready to become liberated? These stories are not meant, to be thought of idly or say, well, that was just make believe. It is to show you, like, don't attach to these things. And this is where Master Shen is going with this part, in terms of saying that, now I'm not telling you all, to stop doing whatever you're doing. Stop that now. Don't do it. I'm seeing you. No, not really. Her compassion for, exactly, it is her compassion for, because it speaks for all of us, her compassion for all sentient beings. And so that one eye was worth a lot because it's repeated. The story is repeated and gives people an idea of what is of value and what is not of value. So we continue on. He says, because they are still attached to worldly passions are simply a form of lust. And to me, I would say, yes, sexual interest is pretty high up on the chart, but it's not the only one. People can have lust for money, lust for fame, lust for acceptance, in terms of that. And they're willing to lie and whatever to get these things, or cheat and steal, to get all of this stuff. Obviously, all of those things are not conducive to a proper practice. But so we can start with Master Shen putting the sexual relations up at the top, but we can see many other ones as well. And that's why I would say to him, yes, Master, you're right to put it up there, but there's all these other ones too. And so somebody simply giving up sex isn't going to do it if they still have a lust for other things. But it is that attachment to samsara and of getting that keeps us down. Next one. Although these demons possess tremendous enmity, they are in the grip of their worldly passions. And while you are within wonderful enlightenment, they cannot affect you any more than blowing wind can affect light, or a knife can cut through water. You are like boiling water. And while the demons are like solid ice, which in the presence of heat soon melts away, since they rely exclusively on their spiritual powers, they are mere guests. And this is very, very important, because now we begin to see the samsaric entities as mere guests. We're mere guests in mind as well. We have a choice. We can go with the demons and the spirits, the heaven dwellers, or we can go and practice seriously. We are not stuck in there. Thank you, Michael. We're not stuck in this realm. And it's very, very important. There's a story about the Buddha and his cousin, Anuruddha. And Anuruddha was very, very handsome man, just like Ananda was handsome. There was this, he was, I'm trying to think of who he was, the cousin of the Buddha. And he had a very, very beautiful wife and a big palace. And the Buddha tricked him one day. He said, I think Anuruddha needs to come and start practicing with us. So he tricked him. So when the Buddha came to his house to beg alms, the Buddha had his bow. And when when the Anuruddha went to put food into the bowl, magically the bowl moved back. And then so he had to take a step forward to put the food in the bowl. And the Buddha kept doing this, kind of putting Anuruddha in a trance until he got to the Jeta Grove. And so when he got to the Jeta Grove, Anuruddha was very confused. He said, how did I get here? And so the Buddha told him, it's time for you to practice. And he said, but why should I practice? Have you seen my wife? She's very, very beautiful. And my palace is very comfortable. And he said, then do me a favor. Can you come with me? And so the Buddha, using his powers, took Anuruddha to heaven. And when he was in heaven, he looked around and he said, where did all these women come from? They are like much more beautiful than my wife. Their beauty is incredible. And the Buddha said, those are your wives. And he said, really? So he says, yes. And how about this palace? And he said, that's yours too. When you die, you're going to go to heaven. And he said, wow, really? So at this point, it looks like Anuruddha is getting locked into samsara. Whatever we're craving for locks us in. Whatever our desires or aversions locks us into this world. But then he told Anuruddha, I have one more place to show you. And then he takes him to hell. And in hell, there was this kind of like a half man, half beast lector that was there. And he was going like this with a big bowl or pot. And Anuruddha said, what is he doing? And he said, well, why don't you go over there and ask him what he's doing? So when he went over to him and he looked down, there was boiling oil. And so the lector was just there. And he said, why are you boiling this oil? And so the lector said, we're boiling the oil, we're getting it ready. So when Anuruddha finishes his life in heaven, he's going to be put in this pot. Well, as it is, Anuruddha got the gist of what the Buddha was trying to tell him, that everything is rising, falling, sorrow, suffering, and joy that doesn't last. And it's a losing game. It's like playing tic-tac-toe with somebody, and they move first. Against somebody who knows what they're doing, you'll never win. So he understood this game of samsara is not one of winning. Even if you had these 5 spiritual powers, it's of no value. Even if you can heal the people, it's of no value because you can't get them out of samsara. The Buddha could. The Buddha Dharma is the way that it leads us from that. It's a gift for us in samsara. It's an illusory gift because we can't put it there, no matter, even if we begin to read it, we cannot get it in this way. We have to look beyond it, the words, to be able to get it. This is what the Shurangama Sutra is doing here. And it's saying, don't hold on to any of these things because they confuse the mind. All these desires and aversions, they confuse your mind. And it is not helpful to you. You have to practice in the right way. And so when he sees this and he says, all of these things are mere guests, Anuruddha also understood he is a mere guest. Even in the human realm, he's a guest here. The human realm is a guest as well in mind. But he was holding on because he especially thought it was pretty good if he was going to go to heaven. But when he realizes that he can't stay in heaven, just like what it was saying in the Shurangama Sutra, when they start beginning to smell and their clothes get soiled and there's all sorts of other things that are happening to them and the world is breaking apart. The death of a god is much more painful than of the one of in the human realm. Of course, we all suffer, and there's a sentient being that's passing. But when one is clinging to so much, I don't want to go. I don't want to go. No, if I die, I don't know where I'm going to go. That's what Master Ling Chi said. If you don't know where you're going to go, you better practice. All of this fits beautifully in. And he says that they're merely guests. This is what we call guest dust affliction. An affliction. You think you're real, but you're just a spot. It doesn't stain the robe of the Buddha, but you think that you're the robe of the Buddha. You think you're the Buddha. This body is not, but those who are listening to me right now are not other than using the Buddha mind and your Buddha nature. You just simply have to awaken to that. And if you can awaken to that, then everywhere you go, all you see is Buddhas. Everywhere, everybody is a Buddha. Crush the ant, think twice. It's a little Buddha. But how can that be? How can it not be? They still have a sentience to them, although it's very, very primitive in comparison to ours. And our sentience is incredibly primitive to heaven dwellers who have really excelled in their 5 spiritual powers. But heck, even a ghost has 5 spiritual powers better than a human being. That's why they can afflict us. That's why they can get into our consciousness and confuse us. We don't know that because we don't know the ghosts. We don't know how they are. But if you have a sense of this, when you see people, you can see a person and you can see if they have a demon inside of them or a vexing spirit. And it's very interesting because those spirits, they will know that you can see them. And it's very interesting. They will turn towards you. The body of the person will turn involuntarily towards you because they're not comfortable that you're seeing them. I know this sounds very strange, but this is just the way it is. This is what Chenhua Master was talking about. And they're just piggybacking onto that person. But if you practice well and you have a great devotion to it, you build up Dharma protection. The more you practice, the more you'll be less vexed by this kind of appearances in mind. And they happen. I'm not going to go into it in a great detail, but just suffice it to say that happens a lot of times, especially even when people are dying. When they're dying, their enemies will come to them at that point because they have a lot of in-chi. In-chi for Westerners is, and probably for Chinese as well, because you probably don't understand my Chinese. Somebody can say in-chi in Chinese and you'll know what I'm talking about. And then they'll say, in-chi. Robert, how do you say in-chi?
阴气，阴阳的阴 is the yin and yang.
That's for the Chinese. So you thank you, Anya. And so yes, thank you. So this in-chi, then they will be attracted to that. So some of you people, you can feel, do you have a lot of in-chi or yang-chi, or are you balanced? No. And you have to be aware of how much in-chi you have, because these spirits tend to go towards people that are of in-chi, like they're very, very soft. And but actually in the practice of martial arts and Qigong, the in Qi is something very powerful. We just don't know and don't understand that. And part of it is because they have a more capacity to experience these 5 spiritual powers than the people with just yang qi, just a big ox or a brute that has a lot of yang qi. But with the in qi, there's also the danger of being vexed. Also, if you're a good practitioner, you will also attract a lot of demons because you're a prize. You're a prize that they want to capture you. Now, this is very interesting because how many people they know, let's say Christian pastors, and you see them on TV and going, I'm shamed. As God is my witness, you know, I don't know how I found myself in that brothel with whatever, or doing all sorts of perverted things, but it happens. Why? Because the demons and the spirits, they go to them because they're a big catch. They got the big kahuna. And so these things are they go after them, they set their traps. So you have to be very, very careful so you don't fall into these traps. You use your Dharma protector so that they cannot be around you. And this is important. And you use the Dharma as your protection. And so you understand this, that you're not going to fall into these states. These mental states are just your own mind superimposing something more, an additional phenomena, but it's very attractive to look at and go, wow, if I have this, I must be getting very close to the doors of enlightenment. You know, I'm just lived down the street from the Buddha. From my viewpoint, no, it doesn't work that way. Where are we at with the time now? Oh, two minutes. Okay. Let's see how far we can go. And I'm going to take my time in doing this, and I don't know whether we'll get to all the 50 states, but as long as whatever I'm mining here is helpful to you, I'll continue to do that. They can succeed in their destructiveness through your mind, which is the host of the 5 skandha: form, sensation, perception, volition, and consciousness. If the host becomes confused, the guest will be able to do as they please. So if somebody says, if one jelly donut is good, a dozen have to be better. If you yell at somebody and you see them cowering away, then you develop the skill of having people fearful of you. People become very confused, and then this is their go-to habitual guest affliction that comes up. They do not understand that, but it comes from the 5 skandha. That's why we cannot put any kind of a credence in the 5 skandha. It is just an illusion itself. When you are in dhyana, the practice, hold on a second. Are you back? Okay, sorry, I had an incoming call that wasn't diverted. Okay, when you're in dhyana, awakened, aware, and free of delusion, their demonic deeds can do nothing to you. As the skandhas dissolve, you enter the light. All those deviant hordes depend upon dark energy. Now, I can see Michael, being a quantum physicist, going, this is dark energy? It's not in that way, Michael. Calm down. Since light can destroy darkness, they would be destroyed if they drew near. How could they dare linger and try to disrupt your dhyana samadhi? So it's very interesting because your practice is so strong. At some point, you develop kind of a shell, and you have this protection, like the kung fu artists from old. They could develop what's called iron shirt. They were impenetrable. Even to this day, you know, I saw people that would demonstrate this with a spear and putting it here, and the spear would bend like this, but not penetrate their body. A sharp spear. We're not talking about some dull spear, but a very sharp spear. And they developed this iron shirt. Sometimes it was called golden bell, and you have this protection. In the Chan practice, we have this, you could say, this iron shirt, but the iron shirt is our practice, is our wisdom that protects us. As we practice and develop dhyana, we become awakened and aware. That's what I've been teaching you. Awaken and aware. What are you aware? You're aware of everything rising and falling. You are not attaching to it at all. You simply see it for what it is. And you're free of delusion. You're not kidding yourself. You're not saying, wow, I can do this or I can do that. No, you just becomes your practice. And you practice in this way. You don't put any kind of a connection to, oh, I'm so good because I can do this, and I can, like, even Master Shen Wang, at one point in his life, he was so arrogant that he battled with the ghost. And Master Shen Wang was a very powerful master. He could see all these things. Do you know what happened to him? He went to fight with the ghost. They almost killed him. They almost killed him because he stepped out of that protection and battled them with his ego. And as a result of that, they did him harm. Because once he was out of that protection, then he did not have any kind of a spiritual protection. The bodhisattvas just stepped back and went, no, you got to learn this lesson. You're on your own right now. You stepped out of that, and you know, you deal with it. And he learned a lesson. Don't mess with them. Don't fight with the ghosts. Don't do anything. Don't try to dwell in these areas. And it's important because you don't want to be a ghostbuster. You don't want to commune with all of these things. You just in your place and where you're at. If you run into them, so be it, because of causes and conditions, but you don't dwell or abide with them. You abide in the Dharma. Where does the Dharma abide? With the Buddha. Where does the Buddha abide? The Buddha does not dwell anywhere, but dwells everywhere. So this is kind of the way we are. When we develop this kind of a protection, the demonic states cannot affect us at all. And they will shy away from you. They'll move away because they cannot take the light that you are emanating. It burns them. I know this, again, this is something very strange, but in their mind, they're burned, so they have to move away from that. We'll stop there. Sorry, it seemed like it turned into ghost story. But as we go along, we'll see how this works out in terms of the practice, because it's very, very important as we begin to practice and we understand more and more about mind. And this is why I like Master Shen Wang's take on this portion of the sutra, because he's approaching it from the idea of how this fits into the analysis of mind work. Okay, I think that's where we're at, and then we'll take questions.
Gilbert, may I ask a question?
Of course.
Yeah. After last week's lecture, initially it sounded very great, but then I have this unresolvable question, which is that if we talk about this body as illusion and the ego of self, can we see this as a shell that can be shared with other beings. And what's the problem with them coming in to occupy this body? And cannot be viewed as an expression of compassion. So I think I'm missing something there. Could you explain?
Oh, actually, your question is a really excellent question. And it kind of shows a difference between Master Shenhua's style of dealing with these spirits and my own style, which is that whenever I see a person that has an entity in them, whether it's a demon or a spirit or whatever, I always are transferring merit to them. I talk to them and I tell them, why are you vexing this person? This person, it wants to become a Buddha, as you should too. And I will help you. I promise you, if you leave this person alone, I will deliver you and I will show you. And so you use the compassion in this way for the person to have a spirit inside of them. It's manipulating them and it's causing them. I have an inability to be able to function in this world and function in a proper way or to listen to the Dharma. And they will shy the person away from that. So it's not a healthy situation. It would be like two hermit crabs occupying the same shell. One wants to go this way and the other one wants to go that way. So it's different. This is not on the path to liberation. So because the one has the power of the six or the five spiritual powers, they can vex the person. They can get into their mind and confuse them. I'm not saying that everybody has something like that. That doesn't happen too often, but there's telltale signs. But when you do that, what you do is you try to deliver both of them, but the one that's vexing the body. You try to talk to them and try to get them to leave the body and to go. And to me, the way I do it, and again, I'm not a ghostbuster, so please don't call me if you have a ghost in your house, because people are always calling me about that type of stuff. Okay. I kind of open up a light in mind and just try to get them to go to that light. And so as I open it up above them, I just draw the attention there and say, this is the way to a better life, that you're here and you're just kind of slumming with this person. Don't you really want to go further? And so you present them with the alternative of a different lifetime, a different opportunity to practice. And so most of them will do that. Now, if you get one like the exorcist grade type of one, it's not going to work too well. You know, it becomes very, very dangerous, and you should not be fooling with that at all, because they can, as Master Shenhua found out, those things are very, very powerful, and they can really do you a lot of damage, literally a lot of damage. I mean, they'll jump to you. So you have to be careful with that. I don't know why I'm getting too detailed in this, but in terms of that, you try to deliver them, and it works for the most part. Okay, but that was a good question. You don't leave them there, you know, or you don't bang them on the head, you know, and you trying to get them out like an exorcism. I don't think that that's very healthy for the person that has it in there, or for the entity. The entity is just ignorant. They just don't understand for the most part. Some of them are really downright really nasty, and it's difficult to deal with them. But most of them you can. Okay. Next question.
I have a question. If no one has question, then can you
Go
hear
ahead.
me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. I'm kind of new to this sutra thing. I never really read one. This is my first time doing this, but I just over this past few months, I have many experience on either during my meditation or before and right before I go to sleep or just get up in the morning. And I feel like this is some kind of energy that sucked me into this center of the tornado. And at that moment, you feel it was quiet, it's tranquility, stillness, and very peaceful. And the most important thing is no thought come in. I mean, automatically no thought, like no effort. And it feels like I wasn't there. It's just like something over me that Jen Chen is not there. There is no way I can ask, who am I? Because it just feels like I have very clear conscience, but there's no one there. So I was wondering, over the last few months, I'm thinking, last time actually happened was in your 101 Chen's class, 2 weeks ago. So I just feel like I have a very good car and I don't know how to drive. If I can have some way, someone can give me a direction that, how to make that happen, then my meditation will be very easy because there's no effortless. But today after your talk, is this am I in this more, this kind of demon state that I should be careful, or should I just continue with this concentrate on my measures, my stay present in the moment, just continue my practice, or should I be worried that this could be a not so good situation? I need to be more careful. It could not be a demon that somehow, inside me or something. I don't know. This is kind of new to me, and I never read the sutra, so I don't know what's covered in this one. So if you can point me a direction so I can, yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, not all sutras are like the one we're reading right now. This is a very unusual one, and one that I'm kind of using for especially those who have been practicing for a while. But you're drawn into this, which is good. Right before you sleep and right before you wake up, there is a time that sometimes can be a very creative time, and you can put in those time periods things that you want to accomplish, or you can have information presented to you, because during that time period, the self, which kind of filters all that stuff out, is not operative. So in that moment, you can experience something beyond what you normally would experience in your everyday life. We don't hold on to it. That's the purpose of what the 50 demonic states volume here is telling you, is don't hold on to that. That's just something that is appearances, but it's not bad as long as you leave them alone. Remember, I talked about the refrain saying that's an indication that your practice is going the right way, but you leave it alone. You don't hold on to that. And next week we'll get into that, where we're going to be talking about this refrain where they say that, and so that you understand that that you don't hold on to that. That for instance, they would say this state of pure clarity will stay the same whether in movement or stillness. Oh, sorry, I didn't say it. There was one where it begins to say, as long as you don't hold on to it, then it's a benefit. This is very, very important. So don't hold on to it. Don't cling to it. Don't analyze it. Just let it be. keep practicing very solidly on the elements that I had mentioned. Learn this foundational part. Because of your past practice, you know, you have a very good condition in this lifetime to practice. And so that's good. So don't waste it. Okay. And you came here not by chance. You came here in the right way. And so you understand that. It kind of reminds me, because I just saw something on Master Shen and one of his main Western disciples, I think is his main disciple in total. But the first time he went to see Master Shen, and I've told some of you this before too, you know, like it's about time. You know, what took you so long? When he went to see him for the first time, Master Shen says, you know, what took you so long? No. And they can see that. And right then they feel at home. They feel comfortable. So this is good. Okay. You're at home now. Okay. Just keep practicing. Follow the Buddhas and study, and you will do well. Don't chase after this phenomena. This is like pretty good, but let's say it's not like it's like listening to somebody that is playing an instrument at a local school, like you know, like a cello, and you go, oh, that sounds really pretty. But then when you get up and to the higher level, you know, world class, it's amazing. I mean, so you don't cling to that and say, well, this is really good, and you hold on to it. You just keep practicing and practicing. All of a sudden, the music that comes out is very, very incredible. And you'll see that as you begin. So don't hold on to this at all. Don't give it any meaning. Just, so it's okay. You don't have to dispel it, but you don't welcome it. You just let it appear as it does. And we'll get into that next week as well. And I will talk about that, because that's what's coming up in the sutras. Okay, it's very, very important, because it all fits in with all of these powers and the skandha and why we can't hold on to that. So you're seeing it, you're interpreting it via the skandha, but you shouldn't. You should just see it as a machination of mind itself, even though it is not. It's still phenomenal. It's a little bit super mundane, but you just leave it alone. Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
No problem. Next question.
Gilbert, Wendy had a question. She typed it in.
Okay, I didn't see that. So sometimes they flash on my screen and then they disappear right away. So if somebody can read it, I appreciate it. Or Wendy can say it.
Wendy, do you want to unmute?
Am I unmuted?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I just, yeah, I think my question was, when someone knows that, and is conscious that they are not using their compassion, but continue anyway not using their compassion, would that be like attaching to one of those entities, or is it just one abandoning the wisdom?
Well, I think what happens, it's just like Shifu said, you know, a person with a vow to break is a bodhisattva. A person without a vow to break is a non-practitioner. And here, when you understand you're breaking a vow, that's something. It's better than being completely ignorant about things. And it doesn't mean that every moment you've got a demon inside of you, or you can blame it, you know, kind of like the old comedian from a long time ago, Flip Wilson. And they go, why did you do that? And he went, the devil made me do it. And so he blamed the devil for everything that he did. And it was very funny in terms of how he did it. I wish I had, you know, 100th of his ability, comedic ability, but he would go, the devil made me do it. And so we don't look at it in this way. We just understand that these things are possible, you know, in terms of that. But in terms of demonic influences, let's say external demonic influences, those aren't there's not too many of them. Okay, it's not like you see everybody and I see people and I see demons. I see Buddhas, but rarely do I see somebody with something. Every once in a while, you'll see something where somebody has some protector, or they can have some kind of a spirit. But they're few and far between. Most of it is just your own mental state of confusion that's causing you that, and making the wrong choice. So remember, I always talk and say, in the present moment, pick the Buddha. So that will take you a lot farther than blaming it on the devil or a demon. Okay.
Okay, yeah, it's just for me, it's personal, because for me it was, I am feeling the compassion being broken as I'm breaking it. And I don't know why we're making that choice. That's not usually me to break compassion.
I think I know you, Wendy, and I know your trials and tribulations, let's say. I think you're fine, and just go by what I told you, that if you have a vow to break, you're a bodhisattva. Okay, and just let that guide you in everything that you do. Don't worry about it. Don't superimpose anything more onto it than that, and that will guide you. You are what did I call you? What kind of an angel was it?
Yeah, oh yeah, it was that.
I think it was like a crusty angel or something.
Yeah, crusty, that's it, yeah.
and Wendy is a kind of a person that if you need something, and she will give it to you, even if she doesn't have it any longer. There's people like that. Suzanne is another one that's very incredible in that way, that will give you whatever they've got. And so that's why I say she's kind of a crusty angel, kind of crusty around the edges, but she's truly a bodhisattva, very incredible bodhisattva.
Okay.
And don't ever forget that, okay?
Okay, thank you for answering. Thank you.
All right, you got it. Anything else?
There's Yaki has her hand up.
Okay.
Oh, thank you. I have two questions. First question is about mudra. Would you talk us about mudra? How important about when you meditation use the mudra, or you practice the way use the mudra to help practice. The second question is about your VIII Qigong. And would you talk us something about the VIII Qigong? Is it possible in the future you could teach us? Thank you.
Okay, the mudra, when you meditate, it's only this one here, right? This is the mudra for meditation. Right hand on the bottom, left hand, and the fingers lightly touching. That's all you need, because that makes a connection. And then the other thing that you have to remember is that the tongue touches the top of the mouth like this, and that creates also a connection. And then you keep your body straight, and as if it's just being pulled up. So that's all you need in terms of that. The other mudras are mudras, and I think I forgot what class I was talking about the mudras on. And if you really want to know about those, you have to talk to Guoxing Fashe, because he's the mudra master. He's always going like this. If you see his hands, he's always doing mudras. But there's many mudras. This is a mudra here, this is a mudra to the Kuan Yin mudra. So all of these are mudras that we use. And I've taught this one here. And this you'll see on the Kuan Yin statues. And this is a very powerful mudra. And so this is a mudra, like a lotus flower. This is a mudra for teaching. And a lot of times you don't see my hands, but I will hold my hand like this when I'm lecturing. But it's also a mudra for protection. So if you feel like in danger of something, you can do this. And then if you use Om Mani Padme Hum or something like that, you got it covered, and you can always say Namo Guan Shin Pu Sa, And as long as you do it sincerely, don't do that, all the time. Guan Xing Pusa will get tired of trying to protect you. But you even Shifu told me, don't use that, because I was telling him I use that when I heal people, and he said it's okay to do that, but don't do it all the time. And I now understand it, where before I didn't understand it, but it's very, very powerful to heal people or to give them protection. But you don't do that all the time. That's kind of like your ACE medication that you use to fight off infection and stuff. You don't do it just because you sneeze. You wait for something very important. So mudras are things you have to feel it. And then when you feel it from your heart, it will work. And so if you have this, then you feel very calm, very, very protective in terms of how you do that. So it's very interesting. There's books on mudras, and you can look them up, and then you can play with them. It's kind of almost a forgotten art, but it's really an art in terms of practicing and channeling it in the right way and trying to use it so that you can develop that kind of a skill set. And that's why I say also, if you talk to Goshin Fashe, he and I, we're always exchanging mudras, but the other people look at us and go like, what the heck are they doing? They don't understand. But if you understand, then and have a faith in it, it's very, very powerful. Okay. Now your other one, no, I in terms of teaching Qigong, I won't do that. I have a hard enough time teaching Chan, much less trying to teach Qigong. Those days are gone. But I'll tell you one thing though, from my practice in Chan, the skill sets I have not diminished. They've just evolved. And that's about all I'll say about it. Just they evolved, and I don't have the necessity to go back and teach Qigong or teach Qigong to people. I'd rather have them focus on this practice, this mind work, because this one, the other one, I can use and teach people how to give a treatment, medical treatment, but the people still die eventually. What I'm doing now and offering is kind of a bitter medicine. People don't die, and that's most important. Okay. Any last questions? And I know what I'm talking about will give rise to a lot of strange questions and stuff. And those who are just barely listening, I don't always talk about this. I rarely talk about this, but it's in the context of the 50 demonic states, and it will help you, and it'll keep you in a way. So in the future, if you run into some kinds of extra special skills, you will not be so enamored with them. You will not think that you're extra special or anything. You just go back to being a beginner. Okay. Any questions? Last question. Going. The people from the East Coast are nodding off. Brave bodhisattvas from that time period. But okay, then I will finish it up. We will continue on with this, and because I think it's helpful in terms of the practice. Forgive me if I talk too much about these kinds of things. It's not intended to have you think that I have some special skills or that I'm very deep in my practice. They're just like with the 50 demonic states talk about, you just put it all into place. And so it's not something that is important, ultimately important. What's important is staying on the path. And that's what is being taught here, stay on the path. Okay, so may you stay on the path for one more week. I will see you in a week, and we'll continue on with this. Okay, Amitofo. Blessings to you all.
Thank you, Gilbert.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Don't
Have a good
forget to
evening,
tell
everyone.
Thank you, Gilbert.
Angie, my condolences, ladies.
Thank you very much.
I'll tell Angie. Thanks.
Okay,
Thank you, Gilbert.
Thank you, Gilbert. Have a good
Thank you.
evening, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Everyone.
yes,
Bye.
Thank
take
you.
care.
Thank you, Gilbert.
You're welcome, you're welcome.
Thank you, Gilbert.
We will see you next week.
Take
Okay,
care.
signing off. Bye-bye. Take
Bye-bye.
care, everyone.